that, in my opinion, it is extremely unlikely that the United States Congress will propose. And one reason is because they are both limits on the United States Congress's powers. And you all are sitting here in a position of power to vote, and you realize how unlikely it is that you would pass a bill or a vote that would limit your own ability to do your job, in your opinion, or put parameters around what you do. One thing we did last year that was quite unique is we cut our own pay 10% in response to this pandemic. When we were cutting the state budget by 10%, we as legislators said, it's only fair that we share the pain with the rest of the state, and we cut our pay 10%. That is a unique situation. I've been here 14 years, and I hadn't seen it very often where we voluntarily limited our own pay or our power or our abilities to serve the people. Same thing would apply to the United States Congress. So if you look at the first resolution, 28, it deals with term limits on the United States Congress. This does not apply to the state of Georgia or your job in any way. It's the United States Congress, the representatives and senators. And so you can see pretty quickly it's unlikely that a sitting U.S. senator or sitting congressman is going to ask the people of the United States to limit their length of time they can serve in office. But we're at a time right now with really, and I think many people would share the view that we have dysfunction going on in D.C. Such extreme partisan bickering. We have such institutionalized, embedded politicians there that sometimes seem to be more worried about themselves and keeping their seats than serving us as people. And that's not the way Congress started. We had a citizen legislature in the United States Congress, just like we do here in the state of Georgia when this country was founded. Farmers would leave their fields and they would go serve a 2-year term in Congress. It was not a full-time job originally. It was much like us, where they would meet only certain months of the year and do the people's business and then go back to their jobs. Well, it evolved over time into a full-time job where they live and breathe the political process, 24/7, so to speak, and these guys get dug in, guys and gals, and it is extraordinarily rare to see an incumbent be beat now. Part of the reason that is because of the fundraising disparity. Incumbents get the money. That's the safe bet for somebody wanting to influence legislation, is to support the incumbent, because over 90% of the time, the incumbent wins. It's rare to see a loss, and that's largely because of that fundraising leverage or advantage that they have. And what that ends up doing is giving the special interest groups outsized influence in policy passed by the United States government. When they develop these relationships with the sitting senators and congressmen, continuously back them, and you end up having a much narrower view of the world being presented. By imposing term limits, you do a couple of things. One is you limit these long-term fixtures in Congress by they go serve their length of term that the limit might end up being. And by the way, this bill does not specify a certain number of terms to be limited. That should be decided by the Convention of States as they are working out and negotiating and debating what limits should be proposed to put on congressmen and senators. There are a lot of people that say it ought to be 6 terms of 2 years or 2 Senate terms of 6 years each, so maybe 12 years is enough. I don't have a personal preference. I just think this subject matter needs to be addressed, so we need to decide, do we want to have permanent Congress people and senators, or do we want them to go in saying, I'm going to go serve my country for no longer than a finite period of time, that we could amend the Constitution to put that limit. There are other people that want to speak to this resolution here today that have been devoted to this cause for many years, but from my perspective, I would just say that's the idea here. that states ought to be able to meet in a convention and propose an amendment to be ratified by 3/4 of the states that would designate what appropriate limits there should be on service in Congress, service in the United States Senate. Now I'm gonna sort of probably answer some of the questions if any of you get emails on this subject matter. There is what I believe to be a false narrative that if we let this genie out of the bottle,